I got a call about 3 weeks ago. It was a realtor called me on a property, and she calls me up and she goes, "Hey, can you help me understand something?" And I said, "Sure." She told me the situation, told me what's going on. She goes, "How can I help to fix this?"
Love
and
that.
I went, "Okay, you have my attention."
Love that.
No, I was just saying, you got a great crew here. I mean, everybody is really putting in the effort, and you can tell by just responses.
Yeah.
You know, there's no blank faces.
Well, I also told him I was going to flip a table this morning.
Oh, so you kind of gave me some heads up.
We're coming off a hot one this morning.
Everything that everybody on your team does, I appreciate so much. You have no idea how refreshing it is to see that.
Something that's been refreshing for me, I don't know if it's been good or bad. I mean, it's been hitting me funny, is that I'm working with this coach. I think I've told you that.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're analyzing every dollar that's spent in the return on the dollar spent. So going through all the sources of all of our closings for all of 2024 and 2023 and year to date 2024. And I'll tell you, it gives me a totally different perspective.
It's eye-opening.
It's totally different than looking at it on the basis of, okay, this is what I'm spending on marketing. This is what I'm spending on salaries. This is what I'm spending. When you break it down to what it costs per transaction, it looks totally different.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to come out of it. Like I've always, from the day I started in real estate, wanted to be able to scale. I mean, you're one of the first people I talked to when I started in real estate, but I've always wanted to be able to scale the business.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is now that we go back and we look at the sources and we look at the leads that we're getting in the business, most of it comes from prospecting.
It's not as easy.
Most of it comes from prospecting, and prospecting is the thing, that's probably the hardest one to scale.
Yeah.
Because that involves people instead of algorithms and computers and, lead spend.
It's not as much, and the one misnomer I hear the most from the agents out there is that, I'm really going to, dial my business up. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on Zillow or X amount of dollars on realtor.com. And it's kind of funny how sometimes there's no correlation between increased business and what they spend. It's effort.
We've tried it.
Prospecting.
You and I have bought a lot of leads together.
Yeah.
A lot.
And there's been times when it's been really good, and there's been times when it's been really bad. And I just think that it comes down to the people in the seats and the effort they're putting in. And
there's always, well, the other thing we're looking at is the time that it's been in the database to the time it closes.
Yeah.
And looking at realtor.com and looking at Google and looking at, that's eye-opening.
It takes a lot longer. Everybody thinks you buy these leads and
then all of a sudden you're
going to be hammering it. And I mean, the sales cycle on those leads, obviously each lead source has a different kind of sales cycle.
13 months, 16 months. Not to say you're not going to get one cherry picker every once in a while, but for the most part, it's a long-term relationship.
Yeah. And figuring that out is, like you said, eye-opening. It's a different kind of animal when you start to realize exactly what it takes to be successful and how long it takes. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah. And so then that comes to the dilemma of like, what if it's prospecting that generates the business, what do you do?
I mean, if it's prospecting, the only
hire inside salespeople? Because I've done that before too.
I think a lot of it comes down to prospecting, comes down to having systems to analyze, track, and identify. And your team has always been really good on the systems, whether people realize it or not. The systems are what make them and your team so good, because you could be the best person out there, but if you don't have a really good system of identifying those leads and following up with those leads and taking care of those leads and nurturing those leads for that sales cycle, 13, 16 months, then it doesn't really matter.
I talked to a guy last week, Paulie Campanero, and he switched his company from a real estate team to an acquisition team.
Yeah.
And the thing he said to me, which is like one of the coolest things anybody said, I said, "What did you do? Did you get new lists? Did you change your software? Did you send postcards? Did you..." All these things that I've been thinking it's going to take to get that arm of my business going. He said, "No, we just get to know the people."
It's amazing how many opportunities will fall in your lap.
Yeah.
If you take the time to actually get to know the people. Almost every deal I've ever bought over the years, and I bought a bunch of them, almost every single one of them comes from relationships and getting to know somebody.
This is another really interesting thing. So I went to this EXP regional rally in Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. And they have this guy speaking that's about AI. He's talking about AI. Not only is he talking about it, but he gave you a PDF. You can send your phone number or whatever so you can get spammed by him. And then he sends this PDF of these prompts. And I've been messing around with AI for a long, since it's been possible. And the prompt, the first prompt is to ask, you tell AI to ask you 25 questions that will help them understand, or it understand more about your business objectives, your mission statement, your this, your that, so that it can help craft a message and a unique value for your company. So one of the questions was, who's your biggest competition? You gonna guess my answer?
Yourself?
Nope, that's not the answer that I put.
Okay.
Because my mind initially went to other real estate teams or other real estate agents in the area, but that's not my competition. My competition is the one-off referrals. My competition, the only time I lose a listing when I go on a listing appointment is if somebody got referred to somebody else. Nothing to do with their track record, nothing to do with their sales experience, nothing to do with anything. Except for the fact that they go to church, their family goes to church with them, or their uncles, brothers, cousins, blah, 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 blah. That's my biggest competition. So then I'm thinking to myself, can I get good at relationships like that? I don't know. I feel like I am, and I feel like I have some key relationships like you. But I could name off 10 people in my life that are key relationships that I don't know how I'd operate without them. But then beyond that, to compete, because that's where the competition is. It's in the relationships, right?
Yeah, but if it's a one-off situation and you're talking about hundreds of clients, how do you expand that out? And you physically couldn't do that. So that's always going to be your biggest competition.
Well, I do it through the agents.
Yeah.
But then it's their relationship. Well, what we did, something that's really helped us recently is we totally revamped our listing presentation. It's not a listing presentation anymore. It's a listing process. And I got this from a guy that I was coaching with. He had this listing program that I paid for, and it was great. But then we went through and we adjusted it. We adjusted a little bit. We made it a process. So one of the things that's really cool, it's called the seller's acknowledgement. And literally, there's 20 mistakes that I've made over the past 10 years in there. And instead of me saying, okay, so I say, okay, we take the grand tour of the house. I've got all this stuff. I say, okay, can we sit down and we'll go over some numbers? You're like, yeah, okay, let's sit down. So we sit down at the table and I say, okay, first I want to go over what it looks like to work with our team. There's 20 different things on this page. One is talks about the team format, because that was a challenge for a while when people would be like, oh, well, I don't know why I have to talk to so many people. Well, if it doesn't seem like an advantage, then it's not, right? And until you give them the advantage of what it was, that's one. Another one is showings and showing procedures, getting people into houses, and how, our efforts, we concentrate on selling to other agents. So when, you see a complaint where they're like, oh, well, my listing agent never showed the property. If you look up on Zillow or you look on, you see that all the time. Yeah. So we take all of those things and compile them into this piece of paper that the agent, when they go on the appointment, has to get initials down the piece, right? So then they bring it back, and I know that every single person has gotten every single point of my listing presentation and my failures over the years, and it works. It's great.
I seen your old listing presentation, and it was the best one I'd seen at that point.
Yeah, this one's way better.
Oh gosh,
this one's way better.
Okay.
The part of it that I think I learned the most was attaching to people's desires as opposed to my desire.
It's hard to step back and realize exactly what they're wanting and find out what their reasoning, motivation, and all that stuff is without, you walk into a house, you'd be like, well, I'd never buy this house. But that next person, it might be the perfect house for them. And that's sometimes the hardest thing for realtors to do, is to get out of their own way.
It's taking the word I and we out of the conversation.
Yeah.
I always know when it's a rookie. Well, I've had some experienced agents do the same thing. Well, I don't think that's the price. I think it's overpriced. It doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you think. There's numbers that you can prove it one way or another, or there's your client's opinion. And a lot of times our opinion isn't the same as our client's opinion. So when we push our opinion onto people, that always sends things the wrong direction. So yeah. So just getting better at that, but then helping other people get good at it. Because I feel like that's the part you know, about spreading it out and building more relationships. It's like, how can I teach someone that?
It's right back to the systems and using
Goes back to the process instead of it being a sales process, or instead of it being like a
sales
pitch. It's not a pitch. It's a process. Right.
Yeah.
And having numbers to track and prove
Well,
it.
and I mean, and the one thing that I see a lot is, and talking with clients and sellers and buyers and all the things that I see on my side is that I sometimes get a lot more emotional input about the deal, and I find myself saying more and more and more, you know, they're like, what should we do? You know, because they'll ask me things they don't ask you guys, you know, and the same thing on the other side.
Yeah.
And I tell every single person, I have to tell them, you have to take the emotion out of it. Yeah. When you take emotion and put it inside of a business transaction, that's what this really is a business transaction.
It's really hard to say.
It's hard to say that. And they'll go, what do you mean? And I'll be like, well, I know that your grandmother planted the apple tree in the backyard. Are you willing to take the apple tree with you? Yeah. No. Well, then you've got to figure out what it looks like for grandma's apple tree in 40 years.
Yeah. There's a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions get tied into properties in these transactions so that being said, that's another piece that sometimes their feelings are more important than money.
Yeah.
And I always go straight to the fact, and I think a lot of people do this too, is that it's about the money. When I say that, I mean the price of the home, like getting the lower price. It's about the price. It's about selling it for the most money. When a lot of times when people want to sell their home, it isn't about getting the most money. They already have way more equity than they thought they would ever have in their whole lifetime. Right. They never thought they were going to save that much money in their life. And we're assuming that they want more than what Zillow says.
Yeah.
And we have that assumption without going any deeper and really starting to understand what their deal is, because some people are looking for that ease. Looking for ease. I know, because Blair's family did it twice at houses in Indiana that I think at some point we were asked our opinion, and even her stepdad, Jim, was asked his opinion. And both times the opinion was, go ahead and sell it. You know what I mean? Because all the family that was involved, and it's like, just go ahead and sell it. It'll just be easier that way.
Yeah.
You know? And if I'm going to say that, when I'm always constantly thinking about making the right investments and getting, because I look at it as a business too, my personal business. But it's just really interesting to see and to learn about people.
You know, if you would have asked me, like, how long has it been you and I knowing each other? 12 years? 13 years?
2000, well, I think I got my license in 2011. It's been more than 10 years because I got my 10-year PIN a year ago. So it's at least 11.
And how much your business in that 10 or 11 years, and how much you personally, and how much your processes and your thought process. I mean, your thought process, I'd say, is probably the biggest thing that I've seen change, and how that's changed over the years and how you've grown as an agent. I mean, when I sit there and think about back when I first met you and what you wanted to do, and I seen what your vision was and how that's changed over the years, I'm still in shock at how it's from where you start to where you are now it's not a 180. You're still going in the same direction, but it's so now fine-tuned that it's not as broad of I want to be this. Now it's, I want to do this on Thursday.
That's a tough one, man. That's like Alex Hormozy, he always talks about niches, you know, like the niches are in the riches, or he says he's going to niche slap you, or like that you get niche slapped. Like I mean, he brings it up in like 5 or 6 different ways, but I feel like that's the one thing I didn't do the whole time.
No.
I had such a wide net, and it worked for me for many years, and it still works for me today. But that's been my biggest challenge, is like saying, okay, this is my specialty.
Yeah.
So that's evolved. And I believe at this point that has become creating opportunities. My niche is creating opportunities for myself to buy properties, for the investors I work with to buy properties, and for the investors I work with to sell their properties for top dollar.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's funny. when you say that, because it just lit this thing in my head that I don't know if you remember how I got my start.
Yeah.
My very first lead source
Yeah.
was I set up that Facebook form and I was getting 30 or 40 contacts a day. I had a picture of a broken house it was like, and it said, get an updated list of Central Kentucky foreclosures and short sales. And then my contact form just evolved over time. It went from, are you an investor or are you buying a personal residence? Are you a flipper or are you long-term? Are you using cash? Are you using a loan? So then when I called, I could be like, but it's funny that it started with an investment list to begin with. And then all these
Now
years,
you're full circle.
I've done everything to get away from investors buying properties because it's this not, unless you're getting off market opportunities, like working an investor that's looking at stuff on the MLS is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like I'll say that now, I'll say it again. Unless the investor now, what I've learned is that these guys that invest in halfway houses, treatment facilities, long-term care, those people are paying different amounts for properties, so they are able to use the MLS to fund properties.
Yeah. Well, and they've got such a unique outlook and vision on what that property has to be that they're looking more for information on how those properties can be, I guess, transitioned, that they need something very specific.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's actually a better way for them to do it because it cuts out so much time. They would have to weed out 80% of everything they looked at.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, now they can have your team funnel out and keep their focus on the 20% they should be looking at.
So it's funny that back then the focus I thought was, having these buyers, but the whole time it was, trying to generate opportunities, but I just didn't know how to do it. And now we have a really good grasp on it. We have a really good grasp on the data. We have a really good grasp on generating business and opportunities. And that's where we're going. All these lawsuits, they could all jump in the lake. All those people, they want to mess me up about my commission, don't want to pay me what I'm worth. That's fine.
You know, when somebody out there at the meeting was talking about, discounts and all that kind of stuff, last week I was talking with a client and it was the one that Danny had that ended up going to another lender for $250 in closing costs. And then 10 days before the closing, that lender turned them down for the exact reason that I addressed day one that him and I talked. I got it cleared, got it taken care of. We got it all squared away. And he was like, I never would have thought, that just the difference in the lender or realtor would be that drastic.
Yeah.
And I go, and he's an engineer and he's been an engineer for 20 years. And I said, are you paid more than the guy that just graduated? He said, yeah. I said, why?
Yeah.
And he said, well, because I know a lot more and I'm a lot better. And I says, well, you just found out why. I'm worth that extra $250.
I'd say that, but that's part of the lawsuit is getting rid of the people that aren't better and that are just there because they have a license.
Yeah.
And that's always been a challenge for me. It's always been a challenge for me working with people that don't put in the effort and the energy to become better and understand what they're doing and serve their clients better.
There's a lot of them out there too.
Yeah.
I talk with them all the time.
I know you do. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I talk with them all the time too, but I can't imagine doing it on the level of like someone accusing me of messing a deal up.
Yeah.
Because I know that comes across. Everybody wants to point fingers. And nobody's worked in the lending industry. I have. Because sometimes people from my office would be like, can you call the lender? I'm like, this isn't the time.
Yeah.
Like right now, we know it's moving. We've already set our piece. Let it move for a minute. All we're going to do is cause more chaos and cause more drama and slow the thing down. We want to speed it up, not slow it down.
Right.
But I don't think many people understand that.
You just hit on something that as a realtor, if you ever want to, I got a call about 3 weeks ago and I wasn't even the loan officer on the deal. Okay. It was a realtor called me on a property that was something going on in Tennessee. And I'd done a couple deals with her. And she calls me up and she goes, hey, can you help me understand something? And I said, sure. She told me the situation, told me what was going on. She goes, how can I help to fix this?
Ooh, love
and
that.
I went, okay, you have my attention.
Love that.
And I went from walking into a meeting, or walking into, I don't know, somewhere to grab lunch or something, to I turned around and went back to my car.
I love it.
And her and I sat there and had a 20-minute conversation, and I got all the specifics. And I said, okay, here's how you can address the issue and how you can help get this thing, across the finish line.
Yeah.
And she called me back about a day later and she goes, I did everything that you said and it really helped everything kind of smooth. And rather than calling and yelling, sometimes if you call and say, how can I help fix the problem?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have everybody working towards a common goal, things are going to come up. And when everybody can kind of help attribute
we all
or
want the same
contribute,
thing.
yeah, you all want the same thing. And screaming and yelling isn't going to get you there any faster.
It's when people don't want the same thing. That's when the screaming and yelling should happen.
Yeah.
When you got some buyer that's flaking out because they paid too much, or you've got some seller that doesn't want to do repairs, or, and nobody's going to move forward. But at the same time, people still want the same thing. It's just getting everybody calm.
And that's it. Staying calm, focus, working towards a common goal. If you come from contribution, 90% of the time, it's going to have a 1,000% better outcome than it ever will from coming from confrontation.
Yeah.
So my 2 Ps is that would be the one recommendation I can give to any agent is rather than
what can I do to help this work out?
Yeah.
I call you all the time with that stuff.
Yeah. And I, you know what? I'm happy to help somebody out that's trying to make a positive impact on someone else's life because that's what we do every day.
I do it to help other people, yes. But I also call you, and Aaron Marsh is another one, so I don't sound like a dumbass.
Yeah. Like,
I might know the answer. But I'm still going to call you and ask it in your words. Like, 'cause then I don't have to take responsibility for the answer. I say, hey, look, I just called my guy. He said this. Yeah. And I think that's a valuable lesson for real estate agents that try to talk before they know the answer. I do that. I do that to people. Yeah.
I had a realtor call me, a realtor out of Florida call me, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was talking with her about something and she had a client on speakerphone in her car. Mm-hmm. And she said something and I just stayed quiet. And she goes, I'm wrong, aren't I? And I went, well, you're not exactly wrong, And she goes, give it to, and I told her, and she went, okay, so I was 100% wrong, and sometimes, she said something, inserted herself, and then called me and asked me for my opinion. And it puts me in a situation where
it's better than not calling at all, though.
No, but I mean, she was like wanting me to reaffirm.
She wanted to affirm what you said.
Yeah. And it turned out to be exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, she was able to say something that really kind of shocked me. And she goes, and that's why I have the people around me that I have. She goes, because I don't know everything. And so, in the things that sound like common sense, and we all know that in our world, common sense is about 10% of what it should be.
Yeah.
That it really wasn't the exact way that it should have been handled. She goes, and that's why I do these calls. And that's why I follow up, because I'm okay saying that I'm wrong or I need to fix it.
Yeah.
And the client was like, I really appreciate you double checking that.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell that to new guys all the time. It's like, you don't need to know anything. You don't need to know anything. You just got to know who to call. And right now you can call me. Just call me. And I know the person to call. But we must have saved 4 or 5 deals like that in the past 6 months. I mean,
at least.
At least. I mean, I can think of 5 right now that were dead deals, that turned into something. So, man, I always appreciate you having you on here and being a support to our team.
Man, I always love come over here, man. You guys are great to hang out with. I love the energy. I love the things you guys are doing, the ways you're helping people. I love it. I'll always help you guys out any way I can.
You know how you can help us out right now? We started a challenge on the Thursday for the 30 listing appointments in 30 days. So that's how you can help get me a listing appointment.
You can do that for sure.
Okay, I heard that. You heard that. So Eric's going to get me a listing appointment. All right. Thanks for watching. If you like it, subscribe it, like it, subscribe it, comment, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.